Joining us now in the studio, we have Kevin Terry, whose name you might know if you're familiar with Antigua's drag racing scene. Kevin has held the speed record here in Antigua with his race car Hurricane Vega since 2001. Now, in September, he introduced a very special vehicle to the island, a Nitro funny car, which is believed to be the first one ever driven in Antigua. It made its debut at the North Sound International Raceway by the Viv Richards Cricket Stadium, and as I can testify because I was there on the day, it's a pretty powerful machine. Kevin and his team say it's not just the fastest car in the country, but perhaps the entire Caribbean. Kevin, for people who might not know, what exactly is a Nitro funny car?
Well, it's first of all, thanks for having me on this morning. A Nitro funny car is a purpose-built race car. They run on a special fuel called nitromethane, which doesn't need an awful lot of oxygen, so it allows us to pump massive amounts of fuel through the engine. And the more fuel you pump through, the more power you make. So because it doesn't need it has its own oxygen in its structure, it makes it very easy to make horsepower numbers that could never be achieved with a regular race fuel or methanol engine. Nitromethane engines can make, depending on how much you pour into it, anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 horsepower.
Wow. And what's the top speed you've got out of it so far?
Well, we've only been testing. We've only had the one launch there in September. We're going to do our actual testing on another island. We're going to ship it to either Puerto Rico, Trinidad, or Jamaica to do our full passes. But cars with the same setup, the same engine, drivetrain, the whole deal, are typically, like when they're running them in Australia or the US, a car like that runs somewhere 5.6 to 5.8 in the quarter mile at 270 miles per hour.
Okay, so that's pretty fast then.
Yeah. Well, the next one we want, it's a dual magneto motor, and then we're talking quarter mile times, well, they don't even race them in the quarter mile anymore. They only run them to the 1,000 feet. And in 1,000 feet, these things get to 320 miles an hour.
Wow.
In 3.7 seconds.
Gosh, that makes me dizzy even thinking about it. And I think you had to import the fuel. It's special fuel, as you said, nitromethane. You had to bring that in?
Yeah, there's no one in the Caribbean currently running a nitro car, so we have to bring our own fuel in to run it.
And I'm guessing that's probably quite a lot of fuel. I'm thinking it's probably not the most environmentally friendly vehicle.
We'll empty a 50-gallon drum of nitromethane to go down a quarter-mile track 4 times.
Okay, wow.
So it is dumping a lot of fuel through. It's not the most environmentally friendly car.
Tell us about the event in September when you launched the car. What exactly happened? I think it was an exhibition event. You weren't actually racing on that day.
Yeah, there was no one else in the unlimited class, so it's really just like our first few times running the car are just going to be testing. Like, it's a brand new chassis. We've put a different motor into a new chassis. We've hung a new body. So there's just so many variables that we don't want to show up in Trinidad or Jamaica and race their fastest, and we're still sort of halfway up the learning curve.
Right,
so
okay.
We'll work all the bugs out, and then we'll go race. So that was our plan on in September. Just hopefully they were going to let us do a few passes and just sort of get a feel for the car.
How do people react when they see a nitro car for the first time? What happened? You know, what do people look like when they hear that noise?
Well, they're shocked. Like, everyone remembers where they were the first time they heard a nitro car.
Okay.
Like, I was in Ohio 10 or 12 years ago, and I'd been around race cars. I owned a dragster. I raced lots and lots of cars, but until you've heard a car start up running on nitromethane, it really is tough to grasp just how loud and basically it's an attack on the senses. It smells awful. You can feel it. It's just really, it's a cool fuel.
I remember actually feeling it reverberate through me when it started, and obviously you were handing out earplugs as well, which takes out a little bit of the noise, but hardly any by, how much actually you hear. It's like a thundering wall of noise.
Yeah.
It was quite exceptional. car have a name? Have you given it a little nickname?
No, it hasn't really. We call the team Cat 5 Racing, so it's sort of like just the Cat 5 Nitro car.
Okay.
It's the closest thing we've for a name.
It must have been quite a process building it. Where did you get it from?
Well, it's an amalgamation. I have a couple friends up in Buffalo that are in that business. The one guy ran Jim Audie's motor shop, so he would have built every motor for every championship-winning Pro Mod car for the last 3 decades, probably. An opportunity came along where there was a chassis that sort of fit a driver of my size. We knew where there was a motor, so over a couple of drinks we just decided, well, maybe it's time to run a Nitro funny car.
Okay.
And we spent the next, I guess it was about 4 to 5 months building it.
Wow.
From when we started with bare chassis to a track-ready car, it was about 5 months altogether.
And I'm thinking it must have been quite expensive as well.
Yeah, well, racing's expensive. Any time you go racing, you're going to spend money. We think that based on the brand loyalty that we can develop, like people in the Caribbean love racing. They love racing more than any other sport I've seen.
It's true.
So we did it once with the Hurricane Vega here in Antigua. We got to know everybody very quickly based on an old 8-second bracket car. So now if we want to go introduce a product to Trinidad, Barbados, St. Croix, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, we really think this might be the way to reach a lot of people in that market.
I think it was quite a feat actually getting it physically here on island as well. What did that involve?
Well, our trailer is a 48-foot stacker, so it's bigger than most containers, and we don't have a usual roll-on, roll-off service. So I had to get the trailer delivered from Atlanta to Jacksonville, Florida. They put it on the top of a boat from Jacksonville to Puerto Rico, and then it made it from Puerto Rico to here on a little, well, it's a barge. It's certainly smaller than the usual container ships that we see in at St. John's Harbor.
The other thing people might not know is that driving a Nitro funny car is actually very dangerous too. What did you have to do in terms of preparation, and what kind of safety features does it have?
Well, I watched some YouTube videos mostly. It doesn't seem like it can be that hard. No, I'm kidding. No, the guys that I've built the car with, they've been in the sport for so long.
Right.
That the transition to go from like an 8-second bracket car to a 5-second Nitro car, it's been easier than it could have been. Like, they had just so much experience from racing these types of cars, so it was pretty easy.
And I think you have to wear a special fire suit.
Oh yeah, there's lots of fire protection equipment. These things, when they catch fire, they burn spectacularly because we're pumping so much fuel into them. When they explode, you've got 12 liters of very hot oil inside the engine. It's 70 weight oil, so it's as thick as honey or tar. When the motor explodes, you've got all that oil sprayed all over the interior of the body, and then you're still spraying a gallon per second of nitromethane onto that fire. So they do burn up really well. So we've got Nomex leggings, Nomex underwear, Nomex undershirt, and then on top of all of that, a big 5-layer fire suit. So it's a pretty substantial piece of kit.
And obviously a helmet as well.
The helmet's specially made for racing Nitro cars. It has respirators in it because the fuel is so caustic to the eyes and nose. They have the respirators in it to make it so I can still breathe in there. And then on top of that, we also have breathing air pumped into the helmet.
And supposing it does blow up, how do you get out?
Well, there's an escape hatch in the top.
Okay.
So if the car ends up on its tires, I should be able to get out through the top hatch.
Have you practiced that?
I don't want to scratch the paint.
Right.
No, I'm kidding. We before we painted the car, we did lots of testing in case that does ever come to that.
Okay, because you previously mentioned to me on the day you hadn't actually driven the car until then, and I spoke to you that afternoon. You didn't even seem nervous. Were you not?
Well, I don't know if I'd say I was nervous. I was excited.
Okay.
Like, it had been a year of writing checks and sending wire transfers, paying for this. So finally, it was all coming to come, and yeah, it was exciting. It's the most violent thing I've ever been in.
Right.
I've had all kinds of off-road toys. I've had dirt cars and oval track cars, drag cars, snowmobiles, jet skis. there was nothing that has ever felt as violent and extreme as this Nitro funny car. I've driven a 48-foot twin turbine ocean racer, and even it doesn't come close to the amount of adrenaline that this car gets going.
Okay.
It's awesome.
So what does it actually feel like physically when you're sitting behind that wheel and you've got your helmet on and your fire suit, and then it starts up? What's going through your mind and your body?
Well, when it starts up, the first thing you think is that you're finally not thinking about how hot it is inside the car. Like, until the car is running, all you're thinking about is how itchy all this Nomex and how hot all this gear is. Once the car starts up, you completely forget about how hot it is, and then you're focusing on your routine. Do the burnout, what you have, where I have to press and what buttons to pull and what switches and levers. Although it's a pretty simple car, there is a lot of stuff to remember as we're getting ready to get up to the line.
Happen if somebody with no training tried to drive it? Is that even a possibility?
No.
Okay.
No, it wouldn't matter how much money someone had. If it was just, I think I want to try it on a whim, I'd tell them they're just suicidal.
I'll scratch that off my to-do list then.
Yeah, I would recommend that. It's it's a pretty violent car. You really want to. I raced the Vega for a bunch of years. I've done lots of drag racing, and even for me, this is I think it's a really, really big step. For someone to just come in fresh looking for an adrenaline kick, I'd tell them this probably wouldn't be the safest way to get it. Likely they'd end up in the hospital or the morgue.
Okay. Kevin, what inspired you to get the car? What are your plans for it? You must be planning on racing it somewhere.
Yeah, we're looking forward to going through the Caribbean. We want to represent Antigua.
Okay, great.
All the years before, we would have fast cars being brought in from Trinidad and St. Croix, and we pay them to come here and put them up in hotels to run faster than us. And it just never felt cool. So now it's a little better that the car with the Antiguan flags all over the body and all over the trailer and big Antiguan flags on the tents and everything. Now we're going into Trinidad or Jamaica or Puerto Rico and laying down the big numbers.
Brilliant. If there are no other Nitro cars in the region, who will you be competing against?
Well, they do have other fast cars. They're not running on nitromethane, but Trinidad has a top alcohol dragster which runs, it's capable of high fives, low sixes. So there are other cars in the region that are similar in speed. They're running alcohol usually. I love Nitro. Nitro is just such an assault on the senses that in terms of branding, people who have seen a Nitro car run for the first time, they'll never forget the brand on the side of it. So we'd like to introduce the car to some of the people who have companies with a regional presence, phone companies, fuel companies, Automotive Art, Rubis, Digicel. There'd be a lot of companies that would see the benefit of branding themselves with this car through the region.
Okay. So you mentioned then that car that runs on alcohol. What's the difference between that and Nitro?
Well, Nitro it needs less air, so you can put more fuel in. So
Okay.
everything has to be built stronger. The connecting rods in a Nitro motor are much more expensive than the connecting rods in an alcohol motor. And they have to be changed far more frequently. Like we're only getting, well, we have to pull the motor down pretty well every run. Every 8 runs we're changing connecting rods, pistons. Does cost more to run a Nitro car than an alcohol car.
Okay.
But people really get a kick out of it, and it's just a lot of fun.
And even with other extreme cars in the region, Antigua's probably going to be winning, right?
I suspect so, yeah.
Okay.
Like I think we got the fastest one in the region. If we lose a race here or there, it might happen, but my money'd be on the Nitro car against any of the cars that I've seen in the Caribbean.
And what kind of prizes are there for that kind of event?
Oh, nothing really.
Oh, really?
Just glory.
Right. a warm,
I shouldn't
fuzzy
say
feeling.
that. There's, they give trophies, and in some of the classes, we get some prize money, but the prize money never really comes close to
Okay,
what
so
it costs
that's
to
not
get
the
that car
incentive.
there and down the
Right.
track.
Sure. How did you get into car racing? You used to race back home in Canada, I think.
Yeah, I used to race oval track cars in Canada.
Okay.
And then when I came down here, we didn't have an oval track, but my brother-in-law had just gotten a job driving a jet car, so he had this old Chevy Vega just sort of sitting around not being used, so I decided we'd bring it down. I never thought it would do anything for my business. I thought it was just going to be a fun toy to play with on the weekends.
Okay.
And we were introduced to so many different contractors and customers and property managers
Oh, that's interesting.
based on this car.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was really a lot of fun. It was we ran it for, I think, about 6 years, from 2001 straight through to 2006 or 7.
And how long have you been in Antigua for now?
Since 2000.
Okay. And did you have to adapt your racing techniques to suit drag racing rather than oval?
Oh yeah, there's absolutely no comparison whatsoever. It's
Okay.
everything I learned in oval track racing goes out the window, and I was just a newbie in drag racing. Fortunately, we had a pretty quick learning curve. We started winning races right away, and we for a lot of years there, we would be the go-to guys. Like when there'd be an international meet from St. Croix or Puerto Rico, we'd always be the odds-on favorite to win.
Okay. What is it that you love most about car racing?
Just being in the car. I don't actually enjoy racing as much as I enjoy driving.
Okay.
Like the most fun I've ever had in a race car has been on a Tuesday test session or Thursday afternoon when you just drag the car to the track and there's no one around, there's no crowds, there's no track manager flexing her muscle for no reason. It's just really nice to not have the politics and all the stresses that you have with racing. So my favorite part of racing is just having the race car to drive.
Okay. Now, you mentioned before that car racing is very popular across the Caribbean, as we know, and probably more so than in Canada. Why do you think it is so popular here?
Well, limited options. I don't know. We have less going on a given weekend. Like in a big population like Toronto, you'd have so many different possibilities for someone to do on a Saturday or Sunday. Here, you can only go to the beach so many times. You can only hit the same places so many times. So when you look at the popularity of a company like Automotive Art,
Yeah.
I can't think of a chain in Canada or the U.S. that has made that same penetration.
Right, yeah.
Like people love their cars here. People are car fanatics, and we're like that. When you see how loyal people are to a show like Top Gear. Yeah, we're car fanatics.
Yeah,
This region loves cars.
Certainly a lot of souped-up vehicles here on island.
More than you'd even know. Like
Yes.
if I don't know if you've been to a car show out at the stadium. When Cody puts on one of these car shows, it is unbelievable that there's even that many cars on the island
Oh,
that
really?
look really sick. Yeah, there's some guys here in Antigua that can build a really exceptional car.
Okay. Interesting.
We've got some awesome street cars.
Okay,
Awesome.
well, maybe we should get one of those guys on the show at some point.
You should. I can think of a half dozen that you should talk to.
Okay, all right, sounds good. You mentioned to me also that you were planning on getting, I think, an ocean racing boat and possibly some other kind of toys here.
Well,
what else can we expect to see?
Well, yeah, since 2012, we've been racing an offshore racer. A buddy of mine up in the U.S. has a 48-foot twin-turbine ocean racer. We've been racing that in New York City, Solomons, Maryland, Clearwater, Florida, Key West, Florida. Yeah, it was pretty cool. In 2013, we had the boat covered in Antiguan flags, and in the Friday and the Sunday race, we beat the Sheikh from Qatar in the extreme turbine class.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see Antigua winning on that level.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm impressed.
I must say congratulations for all your accomplishments in the sport. You're one of the few persons that have, you've done oval racing, you've done drag racing with regular drag cars, and now you have a funny car. And I know the difference between all three must be tremendous. So tell us, how different is it driving a regular car, the Vega, and now driving this Nitro funny car?
Well, the step from a normal street car to the Vega, it's a much bigger step to go from the Vega to the Nitro car. Like we've gone from a 700 horsepower car to a 5,000 horsepower.
5,000 horsepower car. So
it's, in terms of the learning curve, we got to learn really quickly, and the margin for error in a Nitro funny car is a lot smaller than it ever was in the Vega. The Vega was my God, it was an easy car to drive. It was very, very forgiving. It was just fun to race. It was the easiest car to race. This Nitro car is a little more of a handful. They're ill handling. Like, if you talk to anyone who races Nitro cars, they'll say like they've never gone down the track without having to wrestle it back in one direction or the other. Like, these things are just all over the place. They're making so much horsepower. It's just really, it's very cool. It's the most fun thing I've ever driven, and I've driven some pretty cool toys.
Wow. Now, speaking about the Vega, you still hold a record for the fastest to the quarter mile here in Antigua.
I believe so. I don't think anyone's gone faster. Like, the best we did with the old Vega in the quarter mile was an 8.7, and to the best of my knowledge, that hasn't been beat yet.
So do you plan to set another record or a new record for the Nitro 40 car?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll set the 60-foot record, the 330-foot record, the 8th mile record, the quarter mile record, the 1,000-foot record. Yeah, we should be knocking a few records down with this one.
Now, the most popular distance, especially for a car that fast here in Antigua, is to the 1/8 up at the North Zone. I think the record there is 5.1 in terms of 5.1 seconds. Do you think how much you think you can beat that by?
Well, we're hoping for the Nitro car to run somewhere 3.7 to 3.85 in the 8th mile.
In the 8th mile, the 1/8.
Yep.
Wow. So that knocking.
Well, we'll be the first 4-second 8th mile run, and we'll be the first 3-second 8th mile run.
8 mile run. Wow. So that is. And when do you think you're going to probably be taking on that challenge? Because I know you said you're going to be going to different islands and you're taking part in different things, whether it's in Puerto Rico and Trinidad and Jamaica. I know you have a lot of testing and tuning to do to get the car to where it needs to be. But at what point do you think you're going to be back here saying, okay, I'm going to break these records locally?
Well, I'm not sure. We may not run the car here anymore. Right now, here in Antigua, our sole focus is on off-road. We have a new rallycross track out in Parham, out at Crabs Peninsula.
I'm familiar with that.
It is awesome. It's a fun sport to drive. It's a fun sport for the spectators. Well, I wouldn't want to be the one to predict the death of drag racing in Antigua. I think once people see how much fun off-road rally is to watch and to spectate, I think we're going to see the crowds at the drag strip will taper off, and I think you're going to see people who couldn't afford to get into drag racing will be able to afford rallycross.
How different is it between the two?
Oh, well, there's guys there that Richard Fletcher's running a Mitsubishi that he paid, I don't know, $4,000 or $5,000 EC dollars for, and he's having a blast. Yeah, he's running an Evo out there, And it is so much fun.
Right.
So Sign Pro and Leeward Hurricane have just ordered a couple of Subaru WRX 300
Wow.
horse all-wheel drives.
You know, the Subaru fraternity is very popular here in Antigua.
That's why we chose it.
You have cars like one of the competitors that would probably be in the Vega run right now, which would have been the Helter Skelter, of course. So Subaru is very, very popular.
Exactly. That's why we chose it. We knew we'd be able to call on the Helter Skelter guys for so much information. They know so much about modifying and racing
Yes,
Subarus.
yes.
And although they've been modifying them to go in a straight line, we'll have a little bit of a learning curve in
True.
terms of setting ours up, skid plates and different things for off-road rally course. But in terms of making horsepower and having spare parts and everything, there's a lot of guys here that are running really, really high horsepower Subarus.
Yes.
And we can call on these guys for information.
That's so true. Now, earlier you mentioned that with the Nitro funny car that you have now, with you going all over the Caribbean bearing the Antigua flag, have you been approached by even the Ministry of Tourism, as an effort to, this is promoting Antigua, this is promoting what we do here, and this is of course showing off our flag to all over the Caribbean. As you said earlier, a lot of the times we used to pay guys to come from overseas, St. Croix, Trinidad, Puerto Rico, to come and race here. No, it's kind of reverse. Antigua has the fast car. We're going out to other places. Have you gotten any support in terms of that?
Well, no, we haven't tried. We don't want to really. Like drag racing is it's an advertising business. The way I look at it, it's also a fun sport. Our country has some financial problems. I think you know that we're always sort of struggling to make ends meet. So for me to go to the government and beg them for money so I can go racing this extreme car, I don't think it's right. I'd sooner they put the money into infrastructure here or hire an extra policeman. If we can't run this car, whether it's with Sign Pro paying for it or Leeward Hurricane or preferably Digicel or CIBC, Scotiabank, like people that are promoting businesses through the region.
Right.
If we can't run it based on what the advertising will pay and what prize money and appearance money we might collect, but I don't think it's up to the government to have to subsidize that part. I'm happy to do it. Really, the island of Antigua has supported us all along. Like if you look at a lot of the associate sponsors I have on the trailer, they're not really associate sponsors. I've never gone to them and asked for money.
Right.
Well, not for the race car, but like the Hadid family has supported Leeward Hurricane for the last 15 years. We've done every building, all their homes. So yes, Antigua has supported the cost of the race car, just not directly. Like we've done it through selling signs and billboards and flags, and everything else that we build and sell goes towards paying for that car.
I understand. Now, when you guys first came, when Signpro first came out, and Gemma, I would probably dare to say 75% of the cars on Antigua had that Signpro sticker on it. And that came out a lot of from drag racing. A lot of persons who went to watch the races, I think you gave out a lot of those stickers right in that area. So you can see the love for the sport here in Antigua and Barbuda. You mentioned about the different car meets and the car shows. Antigua Street's doing some big things every year. And so there is a very big following for that. And I wish you all the best with this Nitro funny car. I actually want to see it run somewhere. I don't know where I'll get a chance to do that, but I want to see it run. It's just so exciting. I feel so proud that it bears our flag, and it's going to be going all over the Caribbean, maybe all over the world, and it's showcasing the Antigua flag. That's what we're doing here, and I wish you all the success with that car.
Great, thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, and also all the success with the rally racing. Maybe I can get into that,
You come out, we'll put you in one of these WRXs, do a couple laps on it, we'll do an on-spot interview. I think you'd love it.
I might get lapped a couple of times, but it's all good.
We got Gemma in the background waving that she wants to be the one in the rally car.
All right, so folks, we're going to go get a little bit of music here. Of course, we've been speaking with the man, Kevin. Kevin, I want to say thank you once again for coming and joining us here on English Harbor Radio on the Rise and Shine Breakfast Show. It was so much fun talking, and again, all great success to you, man.
Great. Thanks ever so much.
All right.